I edited the sound because I remember last time I blew your ears out. So
Yeah.
hopefully was that better for you?
Yes, that was much better.
That's,
I was sitting there with my finger over the volume button, I'm gonna have to mute this and
uh-huh.
yeah.
What's up, guys? I'm Raymond. You're watching RPadTV 3000 with my very special guest, the sensational or the savage Paul Semel. Today we're going to be talking about She-Hulk. But before we get to that, how are you, Paul? Haven't chatted with you in a bit.
I'm okay. I'm still here.
Yes.
Still, kicking it live as the Beastie Boys said.
You might notice I'm wearing a fine hat from the Cooper's Tavern. It's my favorite restaurant in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm going to talk more about them later. But if you're ever in Madison, I highly recommend going to the Cooper's Tavern. Now, Paul, we have a tradition of celebrity stories about your encounters with Brittany Murphy, two of your Gary Busey stories. Do you have any celebrity stories for us today? Because out of all the journalists I know, you've talked to the most people in music, movies, TV than anyone.
I wish you had warned me about this because I can't. I mean, I know I do, but wait, have I ever told the Lemmy story?
No.
Okay, so years and years ago, it was Lemmy's 50th birthday.
And for people who might not know, Lemmy is from Motorhead.
Oh yes, Lemmy from Motorhead. Sorry, I'm so used to just being able to say Lemmy, and people go, "Oh God."
You should. I agree with that. But for people who might not know, Lemmy from Motorhead.
Yes. So it was Lemmy's birthday, and in honor of it, they had a birthday party / concert at the Roxy in Los Angeles. And the thing is, I found out that Metallica were going to play. And I'm a huge Metallica fan, and I love Motorhead is super cool. And I happened to know the publicist for Motorhead, and I was like, can we go and cover the show? Because at the time I worked for a music magazine called Huh. And she's like, yeah, sure. So I go and I bring my roommate, and we get there and we run into her right away. And she's like, oh, great, you're here. Come with me. And we're like, okay. So we cut through the crowd and we get to a door, and there's a security guard, and she goes, they're with me. And we're like, my roommate and I are like, okay. And we go back upstairs, and like there's another security guard there, and they're with me. Like we keep going through all these doors and this and that. And then the next thing I know, we're in a room. There's Lemmy on the couch, no shirt. Mike Starr from Alice in Chains is over there talking. There's like some other like rock star who I don't remember here. We're in Lemmy's dressing room basically. And I looked to the publicist and I'm like, I think we went too far. And she's like, no, it's fine. And I honestly don't remember what album it is. It's one of the last ones they did, I think. I'm actually thanked in the liner notes because I wound up writing a story about that night.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. So shirtless Lemmy.
Yeah. Well, the other thing to point out about that night was when Metallica came out, they were dressed like Lemmy.
Oh.
With like the aviator glasses and shirts like buttoned down to the thing. And they played only Motorhead songs. They only did about 6 songs. The last 2 of which with Lemmy on bass. And then they also, during the evening, they would have like video birthday messages for Lemmy.
Oh, wow.
Like they would have, like Dee Snider and like Slash and Mike Piazza for some weird reason. But the one I most remember was Madonna.
Wow.
Who was like, happy birthday, you old bastard. I love you. And I was like, when has Madonna ever hung out with Lemmy, and why can we not make that into a sitcom?
Well, maybe it was when she was dating Weird Al. I've seen that in an upcoming movie.
Oh, right.
That could be maybe Weird Al got them together and introduced them.
I don't know.
Well, let me ask you something. I know you respect Lemmy and you love Motorhead. Do you think any less of him or them for doing some of Triple H's songs in WWE? He did.
No.
Okay.
No.
Because there are some I don't know. I guess they would consider themselves purists that don't like that crossover, but I think that's cool.
No. I look, my attitude when it comes to that kind of stuff has always been that, like if you're doing a commercial for something and you are into that thing, then it's fine. It's when you're not into it. Like I remember back in the day, there was a thing where Eric Clapton did an ad for Michelob, I think it was, or Miller, some like American beer. And besides the fact that he was an alcoholic, it came out that which is right, but it came out that he didn't drink that beer. And that to me is when you're selling out.
Okay,
like, if he actually drank that beer, if that was his beer of choice, I have no problem with that. It's when you take the money and do a commercial for something you don't believe in. Like when we found out that Michael Jackson didn't drink soda, but he did a Pepsi ad. It's like, yeah. And I don't know that Lemmy or the guys in Motorhead were into wrestling, but it wouldn't surprise me in the least.
We have some comments from the gallery. Zach Morris said, Madonna never dated Weird Al. Yes.
Yeah, we know that.
I love that the movie is a parody of his life. Like his parents in real life were totally supportive of his career and his choices, where in the movie it seemed like, we caught you playing accordion again. And
right.
I thought that was
it's kind of, yeah. I mean, obviously I haven't seen the movie, but like, it's kind of a genius way to
yes, absolutely
do that. Cause like, if he just did like a normal movie about his life, I watched the Behind the Music special and he was like, I haven't really done anything.
Yeah. He never went to rehab, didn't have this crazy drug phase. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think the idea of him doing this parody of that, his version of Spinal Tap, if you will, is kind of genius.
Carlos gives us the Obi-Wan hello there greeting. Hello, Carlos, and happy day after your birthday. Hope you had an excellent celebration with the family. And then we have a long message for you, Paul.
Oh, hey, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. Paulie. I've never heard anyone call you Paulie.
Oh, yeah.
I like it. Is that your Jersey name?
That or Mr. Fun.
Are you Paulie Walnuts?
Yeah, Paulie Walnuts. We're like Paulie Almonds, but yeah. Okay. No. So, yeah. Jeff is a, God, I've known Jeff since when was the 7th grade?
That was the Nixon administration.
No. Yeah, something like that. The Warren Harding years or something. I don't know. It's a very long time, kids.
So anyway, we're here today talking about She-Hulk, the latest Disney Plus Marvel Cinematic Universe series. Paul, what was you were looking forward to this series a lot,
yes,
probably more than anyone I know. Can you tell me about your background with the character, what you were expecting from the show, and your general thoughts on the show?
I mean, I've been a fan of that character for a long time. I remember, always bought the books and really, really enjoyed it, and especially the Peter David run and some of the other runs on the character. She's just an interesting character because she, before they kind of made the Hulk the way he is in Endgame, that's what She-Hulk was like. She was the Hulk, but she was like able to walk around and have a conversation and control herself. And it was always kind of interesting, the situations she would find herself in, especially when they concentrated more on her being a lawyer and a lawyer in a firm who were like, we want you to represent superheroes and other people like that. Like, it was always a very interesting sort of take on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that's what that thing with the show, which I think was also like interesting, is it wasn't just a big, huge story of her fighting and beating up people and having to save the universe again.
Right.
It was like, here's a person who has had this greatness thrust upon them who doesn't want it. Like, in a very real way, if she could have just been like, oh man, all right, I'm never turning into Hulk again, and just gone on with her life, she would have been perfectly happy.
Right.
But she kind of can't, and things happen that prevent her from living her life the way she wants to live it. So I thought the show did a really, really good job of kind of showing these different aspects of things within the Marvel universe that people probably didn't care that much about, like copyright infringement on your name, like, you know what I mean? Like, no one's going to get angry about that. So, but it was interesting.
Yeah. Like for me, I've been reading this character since the John Byrne comic books.
Right.
When the editor of Marvel at the time was Tom DeFalco, and she'd always be yelling at DeFalco. And meanwhile, the characters in the comics that are in the comic world are like, why does she keep talking about DeFalco cigars? Those things suck.
Right.
And they borrowed a lot from that. They borrowed some from the Dan Slott comics, which I think he's phenomenal, and Charles Soule as well. So I think it's cool that they brought, like, I guess was Byrne like 90s comics? I believe so.
Yeah.
So they took the core of the fourth wall breaking from the 90s, added a bunch of modern stuff like the social media with Titania. Right. Some of the characters I want to talk about later, but are you happy with what you got out of She-Hulk Attorney?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I thought it was really well done. I thought, it was, it is, although I will say this, it was funny because like everybody was like making it out to be like a sitcom. And I was sort of worried that it was going to be too jokey, but it really wasn't all that jokey. Like it wasn't even as jokey as like Thor: Love and Thunder, which is
funny. No, I thought that it was becoming like Ally McBeal with superpowers.
Right.
And it wasn't.
Yeah. What I actually thought it was going to be, which would have been weird, is Harvey Birdman at law. For people who don't know, I got to explain this. Harvey Birdman was a Hanna-Barbera superhero. And then they made him into Adult Swim made a show about him where he became a lawyer, and all of his court cases, like all of his clients, were other Hanna-Barbera characters who had gotten in trouble. There's like one of the episodes was Scooby and Shaggy get busted for possession. And I thought that's what they were going to do in a very real way. I thought like, okay, it's going to be every week. It's going to be a different court case,
right? Where
like, somebody sues Spider-Man for webbing them accidentally, or like, you know what I mean? Like, and it was going to be like that. And I thought like, okay, that'll be funny, like for 2 or 3 episodes, but then it's got to move on.
Right.
But it ended up not being that at all.
I like that they took from the MCU movie that people forget existed with Ed Norton's Hulk movie. Tim Roth back from that, who I love Tim Roth ever since I saw him in Reservoir Dogs. I'm like, this guy is fantastic. What was your favorite aspect of the show?
I think my favorite aspect is kind of my favorite aspect of a lot of the Marvel stuff, which is the casting.
Okay.
Tatiana Maslany, I think it's pronounced, was just adorable in this. She was basically like as good in this as Milan Vellani was in Ms. Marvel. Like she was just delightful she was funny and very relatable and totally believable.
Yes.
And just there were some moments in the show that were just super funny, like the thing in the last episode when she's like, what about the X-Men? And then she turns to the camera and she's like, like that was just great. I also really liked her friend Nikki. I don't remember the actress's name.
Ginger Gonzaga, I believe.
Yeah. She was really, really funny. There's a moment, I think it's the second to last episode, where Nikki's trying to get Jen to get ready for the lawyer ball.
Oh, right.
And it's maybe like a 30-second like exchange between the two of them, but it was just so funny. And she was just really, really good. And then of course, like the other people who Tim Roth is always really good, and Mark Ruffalo is really good. Jamila Jamil was good in Titania, even though she didn't have like a lot to do. Getting Megan the Stallion,
that was pretty excellent.
Weird and random, and I was just like, what the hell? Like, and that whole thing at the end when they're twerking, like I was just like, And that's I think one of the other things that I really liked about the show is it was kind of unhinged. It wasn't afraid to like get weird and silly. And I understand why people are like, no, this is no, I want it to be more serious and add to the whole MCU. And it's like, no, I think it was good we kind of got this.
Let's keep going with that. I want to talk more about the cast a bit later, but let's talk about some of the reactions that people have given the show, particularly the Megan Thee Stallion content. People are like, oh, they're sexualizing superheroes, and this is awful. I'm like, bitch, there was a stripper pole in Iron Man's airplane in the first movie.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Do you think some of the negativity is because it's another female lead character? And for better or worse, there are some comic book fans that just won't go for that. Like,
well, yeah. I mean, look, we know nowadays that if you have a woman or a person of color or someone who is Muslim or LGBTQ, etc., that you're going to get the bigots coming after you. And to be honest with you, I don't care. You're irrelevant. You're not, what is the point of what you're doing? Because the thing is, like, they're trying to get people to not watch these things so that Disney won't make more of them.
Right.
But it backfires every single time, because what they end up doing is they just get the show more publicity.
They add to the buzz. Yeah.
Yeah. And as you know, having been a journalist like I have been, the biggest battle when it comes to promoting your movie, TV show, book, video game, music, whatever, is letting people know it exists. That's why there's that phrase, there's no such thing as bad press, because you're getting the word out about that. And so there were people, like I know this specifically, there were outlets that were talking about the She-Hulk thing and about the misogyny aspect who probably wouldn't have covered the show otherwise. Which means there's people that probably saw that coverage and thought, oh, wow, okay, that sounds like an interesting show. I'm going to watch that. I didn't know it was coming.
Right.
And
to be fair, there are legitimate reasons not to like the show. I mean, no show is for everyone. And is it possible that we're at a point now, or maybe we've been at this point for a while, where there's too much superhero content and it's kind of, the market is oversaturated, and that's why we're seeing a lot of haters? I
don't think that's why we're seeing the haters. I think we're seeing, I don't think that's why we're seeing the haters. I don't think, because the haters seem to be very specific about aspects of the show or about the fact that it has a woman in it or what have you. I think the question about whether there is too much of this stuff, okay, but you don't have to engage in all of it. This is the thing. Like, if you don't want to watch these shows, no one's like holding your feet to the fire. And there's plenty of other things to do. There always is.
Yes. Including outdoor things.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, even just on television, there are tons of sitcoms and reality shows and law shows and this and that. And not just even new stuff. There's tons of old stuff. There's 20 billion episodes of Law and Order you can watch. There's classic sitcoms and old movies and whatnot. So, yeah, is there too much of the stuff to keep up with? Maybe, but again, you don't have to watch it if you don't want to.
JC says, for a Disney show, it was definitely more adult oriented. And I am not going to agree with him or her, because his icon has a very large gun. But people want to stay in the loop. Yes, that is true. I mean, I like it better now, where arguably there is or isn't too much content than, let's say, when we were kids and most of the content was garbage, So I love that we have so many amazing choices now, as opposed to, hey, here's Jessica Alba in the Fantastic Four, or
Yeah.
even that who was the dude that played Spider-Man in that like 70s, 80s one where Peter McNichols, is that his name? That
No, Peter McNichol was the guy in Ally McBeal.
oh yeah. That he was the one that he was Vigo's minion in
Yeah.
Ghostbusters
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. But I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, if every Marvel TV show was as bad as the Inhumans and you still had to watch it to know what was going on, then I'd be like, oh man.
I forgot that existed until you brought that up. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for that.
Yeah.
I
Well,
watched that whole thing.
yeah.
My God. Okay, we're getting too negative. I'm gonna talk
Okay.
about my favorite aspect of the show.
Okay, yes, please do.
It's something you touched on. I think you used the word unhinged. Am I remembering that right?
Yes. Yeah.
I wouldn't go that. I love that they were so brave with their choices and weren't afraid to try crazy things. And I love that Jessica Gao genuinely borrowed from different eras of the comics to make something that works in 2022. Like a lot of the 90s comic book conventions just are so dated. If you look at especially like the X-Men, X-Force kind of stuff,
right?
It just seems so dumb now. But the fourth wall stuff that she took from John Byrne, modernizing it with a character like Titania, who's all about the social media and having things like copyright infringement. I love that they were able to blend all these things to make a really fun, really different show that stands out compared to the rest of the MCU. Like if you look at something like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I enjoyed, but it also seemed very cookie cutter to me. Like these guys are doing the same thing again. Whereas She-Hulk, as you said, it wasn't like a world-ending thing. You know, she has personal problems like finding clothing that'll fit her. You know,
Right.
just stuff like that. I really enjoyed that. How relatable. You said she was relatable. I love that about her. She just seemed more real, like a real person than like a Tony Stark or a Steve Rogers who are these, idyllic superheroes.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing. When you have a 2-hour movie, you can't go too deep into that stuff, or as deep as you can when you have. I mean, She-Hulk was what, 9.5-hour long episodes? That's a 4.5-hour movie.
Yeah, and most of them went over, didn't they? I think slightly.
Not by but it was basically like 4.5 hours, not including like the credits. And that it's funny too, because in you talking about it, one of the things that's always separated Marvel from like DC is that these characters have personal problems, and they haven't gone as into it in the movies as much. I mean, like Spider-Man isn't nearly as angsty as he's been in some of the comic runs and whatnot. So it was kind of nice to have like this aspect of stuff.
So Rustloy asks, has any of the Marvel Hulk content been good? If you mean, are you talking about just movies or in the comics? There's so many, like Planet Hulk is one of my favorite comics ever. World War Hulk also. They've did a lot of stuff. You mentioned Peter David. He's one of my favorite writers for Hulk. I think he did phenomenal stuff. Jeff Loeb as well. But he was sticking with movies, TV. Yeah,
I would argue that Ruffalo has done a really good job with that character, and that he was really good. And I really liked him in Endgame when he was like, Smart Hulk or whatever people call him or whatever. And I think he was good in this show. What little bit he played in it.
I thought Ed Norton could have done some interesting stuff if he wasn't so difficult to work with. I mean,
I really wonder it's funny because we always talk about how the Marvel stuff is so tightly controlled.
Yeah.
And I really wonder how much of that came from just dealing with Edward Norton and Edward Norton not wanting to do it their way, wanting to do it his way. And that like after that, they were just like, no, this is what's going to happen. you're stuck with it, deal with it, or don't make this movie with us.
What did you think of the Eric Bana Hulk? Do you remember it at all?
I do. I remember not liking it. I remember the one thing I remember like walking out of the theater was that the thing that made the biggest impact on me was that Jennifer Connelly looks good in sweaters.
And that's what you want out of a Hulk movie.
Yeah.
Since She-Hulk mentioned mutants, how likely would it be that we see them introduce? Oh, Juggernaut. Well, I mean, they had him in Deadpool, and they're bringing that
right
over. Maybe they'll bring that guy over.
I would think so. He's one of the bigger ones, so
yeah,
pun intended. Like, I think you're going to see. I think you're going to see a lot of the major X-Men eventually. Him and Iceman. Like, they're not going to leave any of these people out for. I think the X-Men's that they leave out of like the obscure background ones.
Vana introduced Hulk with okay. I'll cut him some slack there because I'm always impressed when, in his case, he's Australian. When Australians can do American accents or British people can do American accents. When I first saw Reservoir Dogs, I had no idea that Tim Roth was British, and when I heard his real voice, I'm like, what? He's like, that's Mr. Orange. Was that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember.
So yeah, Eric Bana made you think about Jennifer Connelly and sweaters. That's
I mean, if that, that's not a bad thing, but that was my biggest takeaway from that movie. I do remember actually there's a scene where Eric Bana and Nick Nolte are sort of facing off and they're having this whole deep conversation and they're yelling at each other. And then I just remember Nick Nolte just sits down and then throws like a micro tantrum where he's like, I just remember laughing at that really hard. And then he just like gets up and he's like, yeah, screw it. And he bites this like power cable and turns into a giant lightning monster.
Reservoir Dogs is excellent. Yes. To this day, it's my favorite Tarantino movie.
Interesting.
I think there are some people that I like better with a smaller budget. Tarantino is one of them. Robert
Kevin
Rodriguez
Smith.
Too.
Kevin Smith.
Yeah. Although, yeah, Clerks 3 budget was pretty small, and I really enjoyed what he did with that there too. Let's see, the first Jay and Silent Bob were like, okay, you have too much money. Let's calm down now. Now let's go back to the cast. We didn't talk about Pug, who I like that character a lot, played by John Segarra. Is that his name? But that guy, he was one of Jen's underlings,
right?
The law firm. I liked his overly enthusiastic lawyer.
Yeah.
Jen's dad was Cousin Larry from Perfect Strangers.
Yeah.
It's cool to see.
I forget who the mom was, but yeah, he was the dad. The parents were really funny, especially in that last scene with Matt Murdock. They always. That's the thing with Marvel is they're really good at getting like the right people for the cast.
Yeah.
They've done a really, really good job of that. Which is why I'm excited to see Harrison Ford as
oh, that's right. He's taking over from what's his face?
William Hurt, who passed away.
Yes. We did not talk about Matt Murdock. That was the big introduction to this series. We got the Netflix Marvel characters more integrated. It started in Hawkeye with Wilson Fisk was the first one.
Yes.
And now we have Daredevil himself.
Yeah, well, he was in Spider-Man.
Oh, that's right.
And then he was in
Matt Murdock, but yeah.
Although we should point out, we don't actually know if it's the same Kingpin and Daredevil as in the Netflix show, or because as they've established, you can look the same as your person from another multiverse, although you don't necessarily have to. You can look different.
Right. Charlie Cox went on record as saying that the Daredevil and She-Hulk is the same guy you've
Oh, he has said that.
Yes.
Okay.
But I don't know how official his word is. Like when Kevin Feige says it, then it's real, you know. I hope they bring excellent as the Punisher.
A lot has happened with the Punisher in the last couple of years. I think they're going to be very cautious how they bring him in.
Can you talk about that? Because there was some weird stuff going in the comics that I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I guess there wasn't like a lot of like cops were like putting Punisher patches on their uniforms or on their jackets and like identifying with the Punisher and like basically saying he was right in his approach to law enforcement. And then the people that write the Punisher are like, no, he's a bad guy. I mean, he's like an anti-hero / bad guy. Like he's abusive. He's not what cops should be. He's exactly what a cop shouldn't be. You shouldn't be modeling yourself after him. Right. It's like modeling yourself after Richard Nixon, you know, in your presidency. Like, so that's where, you know, I think that's where that came from in the comics, where they basically were like, we need to like sort of say something like
right.
Don't fucking idolize me. You know, I'm fucking out of my mind.
Wasn't there, and if anyone knows about recent Punisher storylines, but I vaguely recall reading something that Frank Castle died and became like some sort of spiritual avenger kind of thing. He got like angelic powers or something, which also sounded stupid to me. And
yeah,
like a zombie Punisher as well at one point.
I haven't read a Punisher in a little while, so I can't speak to that.
Yeah, me neither.
He's not one of my favorite characters.
I went through a Punisher phase when it was more funny. We have another comment about the Punisher. The MCU could be give them a bigger platform to distinguish why the Punisher. Yes, absolutely true.
That's very true.
That's an interesting tightrope to walk. Speaking of which, I want to bring up another situation like that. But yeah, talking about police and violence, and it would be cool to see Marvel do something like that, but they would have to be handled very carefully, and no matter what, it would piss somebody off.
Yeah, but at this point, what could Marvel do that's not going to piss somebody off?
That's true.
You know, I mean, do something milquetoast, then you piss people like me off for being boring.
So when this recently we had the character of Star Fox introduced into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, played by Harry Styles from One Direction. And Star Fox had an interesting storyline with She-Hulk that could be sensitive. And I'm curious if they do it in season 2 or season 3 or something. But one of Star Fox's powers is that he can persuade people to do things even if they don't want to. And he had slept with She-Hulk. So she started to wonder if he used his powers to get her into bed. And he wouldn't admit to it for various reasons, probably pride. And in the comics, she's, just starts beating the shit out of him to get him to admit if he did anything. And finally, he admits that he did not use his powers on her and that everything was consensual.
Right.
I was wondering if they would touch something like that, after all the Me Too stuff. It could be an interesting storyline, definitely controversial, and it could be handled very poorly. I don't know if anyone would even want to touch it.
I would think that if they get Jessica Gao to come back and run things, and they do She-Hulk season 2, and she wants to incorporate that, I could see them doing it. But I don't see them being like, we need to do this.
Right.
Because you are right. It is a difficult thing to do right. And people may feel that doing it in a show about a giant green woman is not the place to talk about this. It's one thing if these things come up organically but to go, because to get those two characters, at least right now, in the same place at the same time would take a lot.
Yes.
And I think that you'd almost have to make that intentional. Like you'd have to go out of your way to get them together so you could do this story, which isn't to say they wouldn't do it. I just think that their inclination may not be to do that. That like when it comes to these kinds of topics or any kind of social or political topic, that it's more that if it fits what we're doing anyway, great, but let's not go out of our way.
Right. That is absolutely fair. And we have another comment from JC. Juggernaut knocks boots with She-Hulk 2. How long is that earthquake? Well, it depends. Depends where they're doing it. What if they're in a zero gravity room out of concern for safety for humanity? If not, I think that's at least a 6.0. What do you think?
I want to know why he thinks the Juggernaut wouldn't be a warm and sensitive lover.
Well, it's that damn helmet that it makes things difficult.
Hey, maybe he's a sub. You don't know. Maybe he's very tender.
Now, Paul.
Yes.
I don't know if you've been to Madison, Wisconsin. It's a fine city. Might be my favorite city in the Midwest.
No. Okay.
But they, two things about Madison that I love. They love cheese, which is one of the best foods on earth. And unlike most Midwest cities, I am not terrified to be there. They are absolutely down with my crazy socialist agenda. But that is neither here nor there. I want to talk to you about the Cooper's Tavern. It is an excellent Irish pub in Madison, Wisconsin. The drinks, bar selection, top-notch, phenomenal. Food, absolutely delicious. Their take on poutine, which you kind of have to do there because it's a cheese state. Absolutely brilliant. But the best thing about the Cooper's Tavern is the people, the staff, the owners. They're all just wonderful people. Want to make sure that you and everyone that goes with you is well taken care of. So if you're ever in Madison, Wisconsin, go to the Cooper's Tavern, demand poutine until you can't eat anymore. It will be the most glorious thing you've had in your mouth in at least 5 years. That should be their tagline. The Cooper's Tavern, Madison, Wisconsin. Go there, please, and tell them Raymond sent you.
You can tell them Paul sent them too, but they'll be like, "Who?"
I don't know if they'll
be like, "Paul who?"
Okay, ask for a guy named Peter, and then tell him that Raymond sent you. that might make more sense.
Right.
So if you had to give an MVP to the supporting cast, who would you pick and why?
Nikki, for sure. She was just she was just so funny and just really, really well done, and there were a lot of little things that just sort of offhand comments that she would make. Like I remember there's a scene, I guess she's going through Tinder and she makes some comment like hetero life is so complicated or something really funny like that. And it was like just really, she was just a really good character. I really hope they bring her back.
Oh, they have to.
Yeah.
I think their relationship is one of the best parts of the show.
Yeah. It reminded me a lot in a weird way of the relationship between Peter Parker and his little buddy Ned.
Yes.
Like the two of them have a really great back and forth.
Yes.
And I thought that Jen and Nikki had a really great back and forth.
And it was a very positive and healthy relationship. You don't often see that with women in pop culture. They try to portray them as catty and competitive, which is dumb. I mean, most people are good to their friends.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Nikki was a good friend, and she was there for Jen, and she was supportive, but also pushing her in very little ways for Jen to do things that she thought that Jen should do, and
also very honest. Like when Jen got fired from the law firm, she's like, "Yeah, I'm keeping this job. They're paying me too much." Like,
Yeah, I remember that. That was very funny. Yeah.
The other lawyer, Book, I thought she was a cool character too. At first, they seemed kind of standoffish between her and Jen.
Yeah.
But they bonded towards the end when Book had to represent her in court. Oh, JC brings. I love how they include Wongers. I mean, I love Benedict. I think he's a great actor, a great character. I want to start smoking again so my voice can sound like his. He just sounds awesome. And yeah, you're absolutely right, JC. I love how they included Wong, and I love the character of Madison, who became his Sopranos.
Oh God, I forgot about Madison.
She only had that one episode, right? But I thought she stole it.
There was actually I read an article about this yesterday. They wrote the whole show, and they shot the last episode first for some reason. And they shot the show out of order, which is why Madison never came back, because they didn't know either from shooting it how good the character was going to be, or from having it air how much people were going to love it. Like I get the sense that they've known how good that actress was going to be in that role and how weird and funny she was going to be, that they would have brought her back. Although I will say this, too much of that character would have been too much.
Yeah, I agree. I think part of the reason why it worked though is the juxtaposition of her being, this airhead kind of girl hanging out with the master of the mystic arts.
Yes.
Talking about Long Island iced teas and spoiling the Sopranos for him. I thought it's fantastic stuff. Yeah, but I totally agree that a little of her goes a long way. I definitely want more of her, but not to the point where they ruin what makes her interesting or special.
Yeah, if they did a whole Madison show, I think
that would be awful.
That would just be oh God.
Maybe she'll show up in the future Doctor Strange movie. I don't know. I mean, they just had.
I don't know. They haven't said anything about a third one, but we know they're going to do one because they did that whole thing where
they should have showed her selling her soul. Yes. That would have been interesting, because I liked how she was describing her time in hell. She's like, at first it was fun, then it was scary, then it became fun again. What? Carlos says Emil was good too, but yes, because he's Tim Roth and he's good at everything he does. Tim Roth is the man.
Yeah,
and I kind of like that character got a chance to do stuff again after that not so well received movie. I'm happy for the Abomination and Tim Roth. I like that they brought Abomination, not Tim Roth, back in Shang-Chi. So I was hoping that would lead us to see more Tim Roth, and lo and behold, it did.
Yeah, and this was an interesting way of explaining how he wound up.
Yes. One episode special for Madison. I'm down. But I kind of I don't know. I like her relationship with Wong, the whole thing. I don't know. I mean, she can work with other characters. If you guys have any ideas out.
I have an idea.
Okay.
It literally just came to me. Her and Wong do a 70s style variety show.
Oh.
One episode, all kinds of with other people, get James Gunn to write and direct it, and have them be just do that, and then have that be it.
Well, let's see. Big fan of Tim Roth as Emil. Yes, agree with all that stuff. More Wong, always.
Although there's been a lot of Wong lately, I've noticed, which I think is really interesting, and I don't know why. Because I don't mind it, but
he's the glue that holds the MCU together.
Well, he said something to. I think he was on. It may have been on when he was on Kelly Clarkson. He made some joke about it being the Wong phase of the MCU, because he literally turns up in everything.
That's true.
Because he was in Shang-Chi. you know, he was in this. He turned up in I think something else.
Well, Doctor Strange, of course, is
Right.
the Multiverse of Madness.
Was he in
Yes.
Spider-Man?
Was he in Spider-Man?
I feel like he was in Spider-Man. So like,
Yes, because when they first go to the sanctum and it's all snowy in there, yeah. Because remember, Wong is telling him not to do the spell, the tiny
right.
spell. Yeah.
And of course, he was in Doctor Strange.
Yes. But yeah, I think Madison needs like a straight, seemingly stiff character to play off of. I don't know.
So.
Her and Drax, maybe that would be kind of funny. Although they made Drax kind of goofy since the first movie.
Yeah.
He's been getting progressively goofier, and I don't like it as much. I think he's funnier when he was too literal. But that's just me.
Yeah.
If you guys have any more ideas of Madison team up, let's talk about that. Things you want to see more of in future seasons of She-Hulk.
Okay. I want to be very clear. I was not disappointed that this didn't happen, but I would have been very happy that it happened. I really wish there had been a scene where she starts to break the fourth wall and Deadpool shows up and is like, what the fuck are you doing? That's my thing. I thought for sure they were going to do that. I was also kind of hoping, like I said, that they'd made a reference to Harvey Birdman.
More superheroes doing the walk of shame. That was pretty excellent.
That was good. That was very funny.
I don't know why he didn't put his boots on, though. I'm like, the sidewalk's dirty, man.
Well, you know, Jen walks around barefoot all the time, so.
Yeah, but she has gamma irradiated feet that
True.
don't get dirt or something.
I think you know what? I trust the people who made this one to do the right thing with the next one. Like, again, I think like I just wouldn't want it to be like Jen saves the universe again.
Right.
Like, I would want it to be like a small show, and I think I would like there to be maybe one or two more, you know, things of her representing like a superhero, you know, in a court case, like, you know, I don't know what, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but like the Spider-Man like webbed me and I was late to work and lost my job, kind of, you know.
Right, or she can help Spider-Man sue the Daily Bugle for libel.
Yeah.
That could work. The thing I wanted to see more of is the Wrecking Crew. They introduced them in the series. They didn't do too much with them, but in the comics, I always thought these guys were absurd. They were a super team. You know, one guy had a crowbar, one guy had the ball and chain, one guy was pile driver. Like
right.
Conceptually, it was so stupid, but they had cool costumes and cool weapons that were later imbued by Asgardian magic. I like that they made them more modern, and I hope they do more with them in the future. Just because I love those characters, because they're so silly, but they made them work for this show.
Yeah.
Now, Mo brings up an excellent point that we did not talk about. Kevin, I thought that was the finale in general. I just thought was so apeshit wonderful.
Yeah.
I love that it got so crazy, especially with the Kevin.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved how nuts it got. What did you make of it? I mean, that was unlike any Marvel ending ever, and I love that they did that.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because like when it was happening, I was like, what the hell is going on? Like all these people are showing up and like she's just sitting there going like looking at the camera like, is this really what you want? And when she just stopped things and went into the interface of Disney Plus and flung around, I was like, what the hell is going on? And it just went bonkers from there. I mean, like the KEVIN had a baseball hat.
Yes.
Built into its design. Like I was like, this is just weird. It's one of those things like breaking the fourth wall where if someone says to me like, I hated that, it was stupid, it took me out of it, I'm like, okay, I get it. I thought it was hilarious.
This is great. I love how they use the Disney Plus UI
Yeah.
for that scene where she breaks out of her show
Right.
into another. Yeah. Writer's Room, also good.
Yeah, and I think one of the people in there was Jessica Gao too. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't the real writers' room, but it was her.
Yeah.
And like I reckon, yeah, and that was the Disney lot because like we've gone to screenings on that lot, and I was like, oh, that's like where you go to see Star Wars movies.
That's right. That's right. I
Um,
mean, can you do this again, or is this a one and done kind of thing, or can you bring back Kevin, or will it not be funny the next time?
I don't think you could do it the way they did it. Like I don't think that she could go into the interface or walk around the Disney lot or any of that kind of stuff. I think they could make a reference to it, you know? Like I think she could say something like don't make me call Kevin. You know, I have him on speed dial or whatever, but I don't know.
Oh, this is interesting. Zach Morris says he heard a theory that Kevin is actually a product of Kang, like Ms. Minutes and that whole real world that Kang wanted to see. Wow. That would make sense. That does sound something that, you know, Kevin Feige has all these plans, and yeah, that would make sense in a way, because it is going to be all about Kang very soon.
Yeah.
All about that Kang. Megan
Now they did say they shot a regular ending to the show, but then changed it. But then again, they've lied in the past.
That's true. Oh, another thing we forgot to mention. They did a spoof of the 70s Hulk intro.
Oh God.
That was hilarious.
Yeah. Well, you know the whole story about the origin of She-Hulk and how it relates to the TV show, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was just so spot on. Like, I mean, it sounded like they got the same guy. Like, I loved that show when I was a kid. I think that may have been my introduction to the Hulk, actually.
Yeah, same here. Or maybe the cartoon. I don't know. Because I loved all those cartoons where they had Hulk, Submariner, Thor,
right,
Spider-Man, of course.
Yeah, I think for me, it was that TV show.
The piano riff always made me sad when Bill Bixby would walk off, and that sad piano song. It was that and the theme from Taxi just made the piano very traumatic for me.
Yeah.
Age. Yeah, more comments. There were an episode of Teen Titans that brought in the writer's room. That's right.
Yeah, there was. That was very. Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, Teen Titans Go, when they were going to get canceled, so they went to like the Warner Brothers lot, and they wound up in San Pedro and stuff.
Inflatable Hulk muscles. I remember those. I didn't have those as a kid, but I had the Spider-Man web shooter with the little suction cup at the end, and it did not work well at all. Did not stick to many things. I think I could like shoot the refrigerator, and that was it.
Yeah, and your mom would get all mad.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I remember the string would always get tangled in that. So
right.
That was a crap toy. I'm so happy my nephew has better toys to play with now. We are going to do a special bonus section. This one will be mostly Paul, because he will probably have more to say about this than I do. But I want to hear from you guys as well. We're going to talk a little bit about Werewolf by Night, which I did not know was coming, and all of a sudden was available.
Yeah.
It was a short. What was it, like 50 minutes?
Yeah, like a little under an hour.
So it was a short film, Werewolf by Night, starring what's his name again? The guy, that sexy Spanish guy?
Garcia Bernal.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah. From Mama Tambien or something.
Yes.
Mama Tambien.
He was the other guy that wasn't Andor.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think of Werewolf by Night? Do you like the character? I'm not big on I was never big on the comics or that character in general, the whole Dracula, werewolf, invisible
Right.
kind of thing. So I enjoyed the show, but it wasn't didn't dazzle me just because I'm not into those characters.
I'm not either, and I actually don't like it when the comics bring in, except for Thor, when they bring in characters from other things, like when DC brought in Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Or Hercules. They brought Hercules into Marvel. Like, I'm like, I did like
that actually works. But
yeah, I guess so. I don't know. It's just at least in the comics, I was always kind of like, whatever. And they always wind up being throwaway characters to me. I did enjoy this in part because I've watched a lot of those old Universal horror movies that this was very much stylized on.
Right, like the Lon Chaney stuff.
Yeah, like the original Dracula and the original Frankenstein. The Lon Chaney and Bela Lugosi stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they really did a good job of capturing like how the black and white isn't really black and white. It's kind of a silvery white, and like the titles were right and the music was right. And the other thing that I really liked about it is I've never been a big fan of Man-Thing. Like Man-Thing to me has always been a very low rent Swamp Thing.
Yes.
And there's a lot of those instances where Marvel ripped off DC and DC ripped off Marvel, but a lot of times they've done something different with it. Like Green Goblin is very jokery, but puts its own spin on him. And so it's okay. Whereas Man-Thing has never done that.
Oh.
But I really liked Man-Thing in this. I thought he looked cool. Maybe because he looked like Mr. Snuffleupagus, and that just brought the whole thing back. But like, I thought it was actually really well done. And one thing that it made me think in prepping for this conversation we're having, I'm wondering if this might be a way that they insert stories into the MCU. When there's something where they don't want to do a whole theatrical movie
or a full series,
but they're like, we could do an hour-long little mini movie. Like they're doing the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special.
Right.
Maybe that's gonna fall into this as well. Like maybe this is how they're gonna do certain things within the context of the Marvel universe. But also at the same time, I thought, this is an interesting little story they told. I don't know that it's going to have a larger impact on the MCU.
Aha. But Zach Morris says Man-Thing is the guardian of the Nexus. Could have legs going back to Kang and the Timekeepers.
Maybe, but maybe not. And this is the thing.
Sure.
Everything that Marvel does, especially in the last couple of years, has been part of a larger story.
Yes.
And what I wonder is maybe this was a thing they decided to do just because they love the comics and thought it would be interesting to do. And they were like, and we put it on Disney Plus and there's no pressure there because it's one thing, it's 1 hour. And it's not going to add to the larger story in the sense of like Man-Thing isn't going to ever be seen again. Neither is the werewolf guy. Now, it does kind of establish that there's monsters in the Marvel universe,
right,
which will come up in Blade when he's fighting vampires. But maybe that's the purpose of it, or maybe not. Maybe they just were like, this is a weird little book, and we can't figure out how else to do anything with it. So,
or maybe they introduced Man-Thing to get Tone Loc into the MCU. And he could do Man-Thing's theme song to Wild Thing. I would listen to that. That would be fantastic. Also, I'm not really sure, is Tone Loc still alive? Can someone fact check?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think he...
I'll do it. I mean, because I would feel bad about that if he's dead.
Yeah.
Tone Loc is alive. He's 56 years old. Lives in Los Angeles.
Oh, hi, Tone Loc.
But yeah, he can do Man-Thing.
Right.
Awesome.
And they could get Van Halen Jr. to do the guitar part.
Did Eddie do that riff?
Yeah, that's a Van Halen riff.
Oh man,
I forget what
not
song,
read
but
about
he didn't do it specific for that song. It
it's
was Tone
sampled.
Loc like sampled
Right.
it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I
Oh
think
wow.
it's Jamie's Crying.
Interesting.
Yeah, you have to look that up, but yeah, that is definitely a Van Halen riff.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, because Wolfgang needs the work now.
He doesn't need the money though.
Yeah, he definitely
You
does
would
not.
hope.
So for me, Werewolf by Night is something I appreciated more than enjoyed. I loved it stylistically. The black and white, as you said, an homage to those old Universal pictures.
Right.
Which oddly, I loved reading about those movies and those characters more than I did actually watching them. Because I remember in the library they had all these monster books about Dracula, the werewolf. They even had Godzilla ones. So I think that's why I like reading about those characters. It also had Elsa Bloodstone, who I think is a cool character, and they had that hot actress playing her, Laura Donnelly.
Yeah, I think she might be coming back. I could see her being brought back in, like, especially in the Blade movie.
Yeah.
Although who the hell knows what's going on with that? Because now they've scrapped everything and they're starting over. Apparently.
Oh, did they? I did not hear that.
There was a whole thing. They delayed that and delayed a couple other things because they had a director for Blade and then they parted ways with him, and then they had a second director, and apparently they've now parted ways with him. The guy who's playing Blade is still playing Blade.
It's still Maharishi Ali.
Yeah, but beyond that, I don't know.
I don't know. I think Wesley Snipes is trying to sabotage this movie. Come back and get the role back for himself. Just a theory.
Well, there's a theory that Ali plays his son, that they're going to try and tie it into.
Zach Morris says he heard Ali wants out. That would be a shame. That guy's fantastic.
That would be also weird because he apparently approached them about doing it. Like, he went to them and was like, I want to play Blade. And they were like, okay, you won an Academy Award. You can come play Blade.
You can do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
You want to be the next Spider-Man? It's all you. Yeah. It's like,
when are we getting Miles Morales? That's what I want to know.
That's true. I mean, what's his face? Glover wanted to play him, but he aged out.
Yeah.
So they wrote him into No Way Home. I don't know. Who would you cast as him? Anybody out there? Do you have any casting ideas for Miles Morales?
I think it would have to be somebody we don't know. It would have to be, when I say that, I mean you and me. Like it would have to be like some kid who's like on a Disney show that, like, you know what I mean? Who's like 12 now.
Oh, that kind of don't know. Because I hate to tell you this, Paul, but I don't think I know anyone in the MCU.
No. I mean, like, it would have to be like an actor who's like really, really young and is on like the kind of shows that would be on like a, some Disney show that you and I don't watch, or like,
right.
Something like that.
That young, you think? Because I don't know. Don't they all?
Well, I'm saying that young now because by the time they got to him, he would be older.
And like in Cobra Kai, aren't they all like 25 to 30-year-olds playing high school students or something?
True.
Well, I don't know. Anyway, parting thoughts on She-Hulk. Let's wrap this up and get the fine people on the way here. Like, how high would you rank it in your favorite series?
Oh, okay. Well, as with the movies, where everything is great, good, Hulk, the TV show now fall into great, good, Inhumans.
Ooh.
I put this in the great category, although I definitely didn't like it as much as Ms. Marvel or Hawkeye, which are like my two favorites. But I thought it was really, really entertaining. I really hope they get to do a second season. I would much rather actually see her get a second season than like a movie.
Right.
But I would like to see them bring the character back in some way. I hope it's not like a one-off kind of thing. Although I can't imagine why they would. But I would definitely like to see her get like a second season of hijinks and bring, all of her little buddies back and.
Yeah, I'd be down. Like, I feel very similarly to you that I did not enjoy this as much as Ms. Marvel, but that was going to be tough to top for any show. But yeah, I still have it in my top tier of the MCU shows. I do not count Inhumans as The Basement because that was that a Fox show?
Was that ABC?
ABC, yeah.
Yeah.
So
for a hot minute.
I will pretend that did not exist. I'm going to go back to pretending that didn't exist.
See, you can't though because Black Bolt turned up in.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
and he blew his face up,
which was genius. I don't know if that's something that someone in the comic books ever thought of, but wow, that's very funny.
Yes, but yeah. So She-Hulk, I highly recommend it, especially if you want something funny, something maybe a little bit goofy, definitely different. I think it's worth watching. Please go check it out. If you have any more thoughts you'd like to share with Paul, drop him a line or go to Paul's website, paulsemel.com. Don't forget that. Lots of great content there on pop culture, video games, books, you name it. Feel free to annoy Paul on Twitter at Paul Semel. And respectfully bother the hell out of him on Twitter.
Yes.
Give him a follow. Go to my social media stuff. Oh, I did not use this graphic today. Good job, me. all my social media stuff is down there. Follow all that. Subscribe, please. And all that good stuff. And stay tuned soon. I have a special guest in the works that I don't want to reveal yet because I want to wait till it's confirmed, but it will be
it's Jesus, isn't it?
Jesus. I like very much. No. It'll be a really cool video game developer having a very guitar-centric conversation with me. So until then, you've been watching RPadTV 3000. We will catch you next time. Be good.